topic is a long-run exchange rate model based on PPP. And then first, I'm going to talk about the basic information and also the fundamental sum equations. So, okay. So first, when combining with the framework of money demand and money supply and the theory of PPP, we can leave the useful one theory, which is monetary approach to exchange rate. This shows how exchange rate and monetary factors interact in the long run. Remember that when we use the term long run, which means perfectly flexible output and factory market prices. So when we use the long run, the price levels and the equilibrium is very flexible. On the other hand, in short term, market have some rigidities, so things like that. So in this presentation, we see the long run market. The first one, in order to develop the monetary approaches prediction for the dollar-euro exchange rate, we will assume that the foreign exchange market set the rate so that the PPP holds. We already learned about the PPP, this equation, the exchange rate is equal to the price levels in the United States divided by the price level in the euro. Okay, in the previous chapter, I mean chapter 15 or maybe, we already learned that we already see the price levels in terms of the money supplies and the money demands. You already know this equation. So this time we apply it to the United States and Europe. So the price levels in the United States is equal to the money supply in the United States divided by the money demand in the United States, Europe as well. Please remember these equations. These are the fundamental equations in the topic what I took. So when we see this equation, we can see that the price level is determined by the money supplies and the money demand. And then remember the PPP, the price levels determine the exchange rate. So we can say that the exchange rate is fully determined by the money supplies and money demand. And in addition, money approach makes a number of specific predictions about the long run effects on the exchange rate of changes in three things: money supplies, and interest rate, on output levels. And then next, I'm going to specify about these things. First one, money supplies. If other things equal, if the money supply in the United States goes up because of the equation we already see, price levels in the United States goes up, and then under PPP, PPP is this equation. So the price levels goes up, the exchange rate and dollar-euro exchange rate is also increased. inventory is increasing, and then this means that if money supplies in the United States goes up, the exchange rate will increase, and then this means that depreciation of the dollar. And on the other hand, if the money supply in the United States goes down, it has a completely reverse effect. So this causes the appreciation of the dollar. Next, the interest rate. This is the same thing. If the interest rate goes up, we already know that the kind of in this function, interest rate have a reverse effect. So if the interest rate in the United States goes up, the money supply, money demand in the United States goes down, and then this goes price levels in the United States it goes up, and then under PPP, the interest rate in the United States goes up, causes the depreciation of the dollar. Next, and same thing again, output levels. If the output levels in the United States goes up, the money demand also goes up, and then price levels goes down. This causes the appreciation of the dollar. If it goes down, it have a completely reverse effect. So this is a brief summary. A change in the money supply results in a change in the level of average prices. And then a rise in a country's interest rate depreciates its currency by lowering the real demand for its money. But here's one question. In chapter 15, we already learned that when the interest rate increases, currency appreciates. But in this monetary approach theory, we could see the completely different things. If interest rate goes up, it causes the depreciation of the dollar. So, in order to solve this, first we must examine more closely monetary policies and interest rates are connected in the long run. So, next Chico will talk about more close things. Please.
Next is ongoing inflation, interest parity, and PPP. Last chapter, we learned that money supply increases permanently, price level up proportionally, but it doesn't affect long-run values of interest rate or real output. Real output such as true employment output level or the long-run related price of goods and services. But growth in money supply will affect the interest rate long run. So how a permanent increase in inflation affects the long-run interest rate? This is the equation of the condition of interest rate parity between euro and euro. how a permanent increase in inflation affects the long-run interest rate. We can know this by combining PPP with interest parity condition. This. How this parity condition fits with purchasing property. According to relative PPP, the percentage change in the dollar-euro exchange rate over the next year will equal the difference between the inflation rates of the United States and Europe over the year. People know this, so the people expect the percentage exchange rate change to equal the US-Europe inflation difference. So we can say if people expect relative PPP to hold, the difference between the interest rate offered by dollar and euro deposit will equal the difference between the inflation rates expected in the United States and Europe. And the next is the other way to express this conclusion. P is the price level expected in a country for a year from today. This is the expected percentage increase in the price level over the coming year. So market participants will also expect relative PPP hold. We can replace actual depreciation and inflation rates in this the values the market expect to materialize. So this equation is expect version of expected version. And this expected relative PPP is the interest parity condition, and we can combine this and this. So we can know this equation. The interest rate difference must equal the expected inflation difference. And next is Fisher effect.
Next, I will explain what is called Fisher effect. Fisher effect is the long-run relationship between ongoing inflation and interest rate. And this equation is interest rate of dollar minus that of euro is equal to the expected inflation rate in the US minus that in euro, as Chika said, and this shows difference in the international interest rates between countries is equal to the difference in the expected inflation rate in the long run. So this tells us that all else are equal, a rise in a country's expected inflation rate will eventually cause an equal rise in the interest rate that deposit of its currency offer, or similarly, a fall in a country's expected inflation rate will eventually cause an equal fall in the interest rate. This long-run relationship is called Fisher effect. So, for example, suppose that U.S. inflation rate were to raise permanently from a constant level of 5% a year to 10% per year, and then the dollar interest rate would eventually catch up by raising 5% per year from their initial level. So, even though interest rate rises, inflation rate also rises. So therefore, this change would leave the real rate of return on dollar asset on dollar unchanged when it is measured in terms of US goods and services. So in the long run, expected inflation rate rise and interest rate also rise, and we can see purely monetary development, but it has no effect on the economy's relative price when compared to other countries. So, in the the Fisher effect is based on the monetary prediction that when a country's interest rate rises compared to other foreign interest rate, the country depreciates in the foreign exchange market. So, in the long run, equilibrium that assumed by this probably using approach only when expected inflation rate rise comparing to other countries, the interest rate rise in the difference between home and foreign countries. However, in the short term, as we have learned so far, when the domestic price level does not change, it's different from this long run relationship. In short term, interest rates can rise when the domestic money supply falls because the price level does not change. Therefore, there will be a more real demand for real money bonds, and the interest rate will be raised to adjust it. So, if under the flexible price monetary approach, when the price level can change, price level fall instead of real money supply and interest rate. So real money supply and interest rate will not change.
Okay, so I'd like to look at a specific example in the book. It's figure 16.1. So that's page 423. That's the long run time path of U.S. economic variables after a permanent increase in the growth rate of the U.S. money supply. So that just means that if the U.S. central bank increases the money supply, what will happen to the interest rates and the price levels and the exchange rate between countries. Okay, so there's a few assumptions here. The first assumption is that as I've said, the U.S. central bank increases the money supply, and in the graph will show later that this will start at time t0. And the inflation rate in the US is pi before the time t0, and any time after the time t0 will increase by delta pi, so that's in the rate pi plus delta pi. And whilst US inflation rate rise, the European inflation rate will remain constantly at 0%. And the Fisher effect will also work in this example where the relationship between the interest rates, the inflation rate rises, the interest rate will also rise. Okay, so there's 4 diagrams. The one on the left is the US money supply. The one on the top right is the dollar interest rate. And the one on the left bottom is the US price levels, and the one on the bottom right is the dollar-euro exchange rate. And all the diagrams have in common the x-axis, which is the time, and T0 is denoted there. That's where the US money supply will increase. So here, in the first diagram on the left top, before T0, there's a slope of pi, and then after T0, the US central bank will, let's say, unexpectedly increase the US money supply by pi delta. And what that will do is that this will immediately increase the expected inflation. And because of that, there's an immediate increase in nominal interest rates, as shown in there from, I will jump up from the R1 to the R2 on the top. And I said here the nominal interest rate because it doesn't take into account inflation. And then after that, because of the immediate increase in interest rates, there is also an immediate decrease in the demand for real money assets. Because when the interest rate rises, there's less demand for money. Because money supply does not increase immediately, but over gradually, whilst the interest rates jumps up immediately, there is actually an excess money supply than the money demand. And because there needs to be an equilibrium in the market, the money demand and the supply will interact, and the prices will also jump up from pi to pi plus delta pi. And you can see the slope there. That's exactly the same rate as the money supply increase. Under PPP, the exchange rate will also rise at the same slope. And if the exchange rate rises, that means the dollar depreciates. So in this equation, the exchange rate between the dollar and the euro will equal to the price of the US level divided by the price of the euro. So therefore, as you can see here, that's a slope of pi plus delta pi. That's also the same slope there, and they're here, so they all do increase at the same proportion. So I just sort of summarize that in the next slide. So the increase in nominal interest rates will decrease the money demand. And under equilibrium, because there's a sudden immediate decrease in money demand, whilst there's a gradual increase in the money supply, there is excess money supply. And under equilibrium, the prices will jump up so that the price of the US level will equal to the money demand and the money supply. And under PPP, the exchange rate will also rise, and that just means the dollar must depreciate so that the exchange rate between the dollar and the euro will equal to the price levels. So the money supply and the price levels grow at the same rate, and the domestic currency also depreciates at the same rate of the money supply and the price levels. So in summary, this monetary approach to exchange rates used the concept of PPP and the supply and demand of real monetary assets, and the changes in the growth of the money supply influences inflation and exchange rates. The expectations about inflation also influence the exchange rates, and the Fisher effect, as Hikari said, predicts that the long-run international interest differentials are a result of different national rates of inflation. So that just predicts that because there's a different rate of inflation for different countries, that's why they have different interest rate differences. Thank you.